I moved this terrain piece because it was within 6 inches of the...
You have to talk to the
other guy. Yeah, I'm that guy.
No problemo, we accept that.
No.
So,
big stuff.
good stuff.
So
I'm ready.
you're ready?
Yeah.
2 seconds. Yes. Crossplate? No, Skarre. Against Denny.
I'm not going to change the good horse during the match.
What's the matchup?
Denny1 into Skarre1.
In what weeks?
Scourge and
No ghostly. No ghostly.
No ghostly.
Ghostly's fine. Preferred
Everything's fine. VP, rest easy. You don't have to do anything to ghostly.
Yes, please nerf ghostly. Do not touch dark host.
Oh, it's good. Or Denny, because Denny causes all the problems. And on the finals, it's all fine.
Okay, so let's maybe roll the sides.
maybe.
Taking a smoke.
So Cryx goes first?
Yeah. You can choose the size, sir.
Nou, die kunnen ze allemaal aan. Do you know how to operate the street? No,
Watch, it's not here. He's lazy bastard.
Yeah. So you have to run over there, and it's all on your time, mate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Norwegians. Go figure. They are cold people.
Like if I have an edge, have to take it. And anyway.
Sorry, ale ja nie wiem jak to włączyć ten twój stream. A to jest ostatni mecz, więc kurde, jak to zrobić? Malu mi powie. Okay. Just. Poczekaj chwilę. There will be a comment. The guy that is commenting will be here back or not?
Yes, he'll be back.
So he knows how to do it.
Yeah, he's taking smoke break.
Okay, sorry. Tak, sorry, przepraszam. No spoko, ale ten. Spoko, na razie. Okay, sorry.
Telling you to gas.
Yeah. He's, watching on the big screen. Whatever it's called. Room.
Is there a big screen?
We have very large room because we have 4 bedrooms. It seems that this one looks like okay spot for those 2 clouds.
It's fine. I don't care much about that.
Yeah, I know, but still I like clouds. They make me safe. They feel good. Okay. Yeah, third time against Cryx.
First time against Cryx, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not Cryx in this time.
No, not at all.
Especially in the final.
It's a mistake. For the sake of Cryx'ness, you should have let the guy win.
I tried to put in range for
Assassination?
yeah.
What can you do if you just can do nothing?
Yeah, exactly. I've been doing that for 3 games now. Like you can do the assassination run, and then no, I couldn't see it.
So, it is 2 big raiders and...
And nothing else.
Okay. I keep your words.
No, Rose and Max unit.
Yeah, in ambush.
Fucking because this was killing me.
Oh, I can be incorporated with this.
How?
No dishes.
Yeah, if you kill living model, I have two living models.
Yeah, so I can be equal.
Two like this.
Ultimate BM, like the caster.
Yeah. Or remove from play. I'm in control.
Yeah, and then you put my most epic caster kills is when I create the machine right. It's always so lovely.
Oh, machinery.
I just love it. Yeah, okay. Everything has magical, right?
Yeah, everything. Everything. The whole list.
Except stalkers.
And only one.
The gun is not.
Oh, but that's the fault of the Mac.
Or maybe the sword.
The gun is the sword. Boss of bosses are like Terminus Sphinx here runs the fleet. We all know who runs the fleet.
He is the head and she is the neck. So, everything here. But you don't have damage shots, sir. I don't have a lot of spells, but I have one that is good.
But is it Hellfire?
Yeah, you think I don't have any other good.
Commentator.
Hey, he's here.
We have armies picked already.
Yeah,
Table sides.
Side.
Can I take your army sheets?
You need mine again. It's the same list for the third time.
Again, jeez. And the same table side as well.
Like I got to this table and I stayed here.
Well, it makes it a lot easier for me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever you are. We are coming to you live from Amsterdam, and we are going to be showing you the final of the 2017 ClogCon Masters between Jonas Brand on the right hand side playing his Denny1 and Raphael Kravit, somehow I correctly pronounced his name, playing the Ghost Fleet Skarre1, right?
standard old school.
Playing the standard old school Cryx list with a Skarre1 with double battle engines, just like we're always been used to.
I think he's
That ever reliable Skarre double battle engine list.
Just switch 2 battle engines for Bayonet. Not too old.
I don't know binary.
So we're just gonna get the graphics updated for you.
We have any shooting except Venom?
And there's unit of slingers, and these guys are hand cavalry.
Yeah. The leaders have knockdowns, right?
What?
They have knockdowns.
Yeah, all are knocked down.
Yeah, but critical ones. And there is also critical.
All the mixes are good rules.
Yeah, on the half-inch.
There we go.
No, like these are
And
capable
we're
of
just going to take a look at the scenario.
and these only have the hop on the horns.
Are you sure you have the right scenario?
This is the last one that we didn't play.
Oh, the pit 2. Yeah. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this party going. We will be playing the pit 2, scenario number 1, which features 2 rectangular zones on either side, worth 1 control point each, which can be scored by warjacks, battle engines and casters. Both of these zones are flanking 1 circular central zone, which can be scored by infantry and warcasters for 1 control point, and also in the respective player's right hand rectangular zone we have a friendly objective. These can also be destroyed for 1 control point as per Steamroller 2017 rules. We are joining the players now with Rafal having already set up his initial deployment, having the first turn, and now preparing his advanced deployment line. And whilst Jonas Brand deploys his forces, we're going to take a quick look at the army lists. Yes, absolutely. So on Jonas' side, what he is deploying, we are seeing the recurrent stream favorite on account of him being on the stream for the 3rd time in a row now. We have the Denegra 1 featuring 2 Death Rippers and 2 Stalkers as a battle group. We have 2 maximum units of Satixus Raiders with the UA. We have a maximum unit of Blood Witches with the UA with also have Ambush as part of the theme bonus. We have a unit of Gunslingers. We have a maximum unit of Crows, and we have a Ragman as a solo. So very heavy on the infantry, very, very light on the solos, bringing in total just 1 single support model. And for the rest, playing a bare bones list.
No, I just want to list.
And so now taking a look at Rafal's army list, he is playing his one of his 2 Dark Host armies, the other which being in a Coven as a Warcaster. He is playing the Skarre1, which has a triple Stalker battle group, including also a Death Ripper for arc noting. He gets the free Scarlock from the Dark Host theme benefits. He has a maximum and a minimum unit of Bane Riders, 2 Wraith engines, Dara Wraith. He has a Scrap Thrall for 2 points, Tartarus for free, and a Iron Lich? Something. Solo. I believe that's this one. So if we're just going to take a look at the theme, at the deployment right here by both players, we have a fairly symmetrical deployment by both players, favoring a central deployment for their Warcasters with faster elements sitting on the flanks. I'm just going to go and take a closer look at the table to get the exact locations of relevant solos and casters for you.
Also, there's coins on the table.
We're trying to bribe you now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like when I play against the Russians, they use coins as tokens. This big one is Arcane Shield. This small
So I'm back to give you a better heads up of the positioning of the respective players. We have Skarre1 being deployed right here, right across the table from Denny1, right there. It looks like both of these players will be making a central push as quickly as possible with their respective warcasters. Both of them wanting to maintain a circular bubble for their respective feats. Denny being more of a peace trading feat, which in this particular matchup is probably suited more as a defensive feat than a purely offensive feat, seeing as there are no significantly high armored targets in Jonas's list to really be fantastic feat targets against. So the advantage that Jonas has enjoyed up until now in terms of mobility may actually be challenged here. With Rafal's Skarre1 list bringing both the table space threatening presence of the two battle engines right here and right here, as well as the fast flanking elements of the Bane Riders, which are actually able to at least partially match the extended threat ranges of the Styxis Raiders, and have enough weight of attacks with the appropriate use of impact hits and the cavalry rules to be able to trade with Styxis Raiders over potentially 1 or 2 turns. The fun guys that Rafal is currently referring to are his sacrificial scrap thralls,
Afterward, it's going to be the mean guy.
which will
And I'm coming for them.
and then we have the nice guys being chased by the mean guy, which in this particular case is the Skarlock Thrall, whose sole purpose it is to destroy his own models, and that's how he gets paid. So, not every job in the Iron Kingdoms is glamourful, but every job is necessary. And the Iron Lich in this particular list has one job, and that is to sacrifice as many friendly models as he can in order to feed the ever-greedy caster that is Skarre1. But she has a certain justified greed, I believe, and that she can get away with wanting to demand more of her forces, especially with this kind of alpha potential and with this kind of swingy damage and defense feat that she has. So what I see in Rafal's list right now is a list that matches Jonas's in terms of speed. The fact that he has the first turn is a huge bonus, allowing him to set the effective line of deployment just beyond the line of Crow's Cutthroats that Jonas has brought to the table. The Crow's Cutthroats themselves against this particular list are going to be having a hard time.
They're not.
The time of my life.
Jonas appears to disagree with the commentator's interpretation of current evidence. However, only adequate dice rolling will reveal the truth of either of our opinions. My assertion being that Crow's Cutthroats have essentially no use against either Bane Riders or the Cryx battle engine, and that the chances of Jonas being able to pull off a successful backstrike attack with his Crow's Cutthroats is exponentially close to zero, as you could imagine. Within the realms of possibility, obviously there is always the chance that they will have a significant impact on the table, but barring a completely disproportionate roll of good dice on Jonas's behalf, I personally am not having particularly high hopes for the Cutthroats in this particular matchup. I see them as easy targets for the Bane Riders, easy fuel for the Cryx battle engines to merely just generate those awful incorporeal creatures to potentially take over Stalkers in this matchup. And to be honest, if your entire offensive battle group capability consists of 2 Stalkers, having one of those 2 Stalkers mind controlled seems like an awful situation for me, and I would feel terrible as a player and as a person if I were to let that happen. So
Can I voluntarily cease to be incorporeal?
always keeping that in mind. So we're seeing a very conservative reaction right now from Jonas. He realizes that having lost the roll for first turn and the speed of Rafal's army, that he has to seize the table initiative. Rafal has a very comfortable board position and has the long threat ranges to force Jonas into a position where he has to bite the bullet and play an incredibly conservative turn 1, whereby he merely sits outside the maximum available threat ranges with his entire army and hopes that next turn Rafal needlessly advances so that Jonas can get a alpha strike up on something. I would not want to alpha strike for less than at least 5 Bane Riders in this matchup. I would trade maybe 8 Satixus Raiders in order to get 5 Bane Riders and to slow down the 2 battle engines and potentially get a snipe of some sort on direct wraith, maybe with a arced spell of some sort, followed by some gunshots. I think if I were the Genegra player and I was able to engineer that kind of a turn, I think I would be happy to pop my feet to achieve that, assuming I would not give away any ground in terms of scenario game and scoring. So that's going to be the main challenge for Jonas now, is that he is safe to position in this way for his turn 1. That is perfectly acceptable. He is not giving his opponent any models to kill. He is not giving his opponent anything for free, which is completely sound tactically. He has to realize, however, that in turn 2 he will not be able to position in the same manner, because in turn 2 the scenario elements will go live And if he does not make a significant impression on those centrally located scenario zones, he will start the auto lose timer. So now the clock switches over to Rafal, and we are at exactly 51 minutes per player in terms of clock. Jonas has set up and just repositioned his entire army beyond the maximum threat ranges of Rafal's army. He is now waiting on Rafal to decide what to do. Rafal currently is in complete control of the game in terms of momentum and initiative. Whatever plays he now chooses to make will dictate the pace of the game. So Rafal is just validating the fact that he is out of threat range of any models.
And then I just like...
So now the decision has been placed by Jonas in Rafal's hands as to what speed he wants to play this game. Rafal right now can choose to stay put or even potentially pull back a little bit and merely threaten to potentially score one zone, and he will forcibly bait Jonas into contesting said zone. The question in that case will be how many models Jonas will commit to contesting and how many models Rafal can use to remove those contesting models, to reset the timer and to start scoring again. The two battle engines obviously can be very strong in this particular matchup, and they have to time their incorporeal ability precisely to the right time. If he goes out of incorporeal too early, he risks losing a battle engine for little to no gain. So right now the players are just discussing the dice maths involved in killing a battle engine that has come out of apparition. And I think it is dawning on Rafal, I hope it should be, that Jonas definitely has enough damage potential to do the job, and that he has to be very careful with his placement right now. So the challenge here is, I think, in Rafal's corner to not necessarily rise to the bait. He has a fantastic board position, and he has no real need to move into Jonas's threat ranges. He has a secure control of all three zones, and ideally he should just probably wait and potentially try and position one or two pieces in such a way as to maybe tempt Jonas into a premature feating on Denny's behalf. I think if Rafal can trigger Jonas into popping Denegros' feet in order to remove, say, one battle engine, I think that the following turn of having Skarre counter with her intact Bane Riders that can actually generate a high volume of attacks, and the remaining battle engine, and then popping feet to protect those critical elements, then he will be in a position where he will have critical elements that will protect him from losing on scenario, that will be protected by Skarre's feet, and that won't be able to be targeted by a Denegro 1 feat, which might potentially allow those models to be erased. So I think baiting the Denegro 1 feat on Rafal's part is now the top priority. He has to do so and give his opponent as few models as possible. And I think out of all of the models in his list that he would want to sacrifice at this point, I think maybe one of the two battle engines might be the model to go, even though it's tempting to keep them alive as feat targets. I think in the long run the Bane Riders may be more important because they will between them generate a higher volume of attacks if they can be brought to bear over several turns. So we just have Rafal checking some threat ranges, namely the Stalker, which if left unattended will casually eat a Bane Rider or two a turn. He has to take care though that he also does not underestimate the capability of the Satixus Raiders to kill Bane Riders with the charge and then the second initial. Under a feat, I can see it as a very likely scenario where 5 Bane Riders can be killed by approximately 5 or 6 Satixus Raiders. So he has to make sure that he doesn't expose more than maximum, I would say, 2 per unit at most to these Satixus Raiders. Because if I was the Cryx player and I had the opportunity to send in 1 Satixus Raider into 1 Bane Rider and to deploy the rest of my unit defensively, in order to try and get a cheeky free kill on a Bane Rider, I think I would take that. I would take that dice roll. So Rafal right now just making sure that Skarre is outside of the threat range of Denegro 1. I was camping a nice boat of focus, and he finishes his turn. And he finishes his turn on 42 minutes left on his clock. So now we're going into the bottom of turn 2 with Jonas, who has 51 minutes left on his clock. And he is going to be bringing out his measurement tool for deploying a long line of Blood Witches, which he will be ambushing at the very bottom of the camera, right here, and these will at some point during the turn move up to positions right about here to threaten the bottom zone and to begin the now all too familiar envelopment, which is anchored on one flank by the Satixus Blood Witches ambushing, in this particular case against a unit of Max Bane Riders who are going to be forced into a very difficult decision between engaging the Satixus Raiders to their front and the Stalker to their front, or dealing with this new threat of the Blood Witches coming from the flanks. Now, individually, they should be able to deal over the space of 1 or 2 turns with each threat adequately. However, if he deals with the Blood Witches, he will forego his hold on the middle zone and bottom zone with those Bane Riders, leaving this entire section of Jonas's army free rein to push into the middle, attempt kills on either the battle engines or the support staff of Rafal's Scar list. So Jonas is now getting ready to plan out his turn 2 and has to take into account the fact that scoring will start at the end of this round, meaning that if he leaves the table state the way that it is, it looks like that he will probably only lose 1 control point. I believe the only scoring that will occur will be this Wraith engine scoring this rectangular zone. I will take a closer look at the table to check if that battle engine has towed into that rectangular zone. So the battle engine is in fact towed into the topside rectangular zone for Rafal, meaning that if Jonas leaves that unaccompanied, then he will start to score. So he has committed a total of 2 Crow's Cutthroats, setting up once again the far flanking maneuver of poking and prodding and then using reforms to essentially roll around the side of the opponent's army, giving the Cutthroats both access to the backstrike damage bonus as well as access to the usually more vulnerable support elements of your opponent's army. Sometimes that also includes their caster. If left unattended for, say, 3 rounds, these Cutthroats will eventually get within a position where they have either a viable shot at your caster or a significant chance of a potentially game-deciding silence shot coming from the leader himself. So now we're going to switch ahead and take a look at the bottom zone. In this case, Jonas's left flank, where the Blood Witches have come in off their ambush. This being the theme benefit bonus from the Satixus Raider theme. So we have 3 Blood Witches going in on the objective. We're gonna have a spread of Blood Witches going to one moving to engage, and another 6 or so, probably moving to counter the Bane Riders on Rafal's right flank. Being spaced the way they are, they will probably stand to lose fairly easily at least 4 of their members next turn. So Jonas is hoping right now to get significant damage on the objective.
8 to 10 total. That's 2 more.
I'm just going to take a quick look over here. He's going to make a play for the objective, which he gets. And with having engaged this Bane Rider, is hoping to minimize his casualties to these 3, which will be given. These 3 Statixis Raider potentially being killed by 1 Bane Rider charge and impact hits over here, depending on whether or not that is 3 inches or not. However, the other Bane Riders do have their charge lanes somewhat limited by several models. That being this Statixis Raider Bane Rider model right here, and this particular model, which actually is probably engaged by this Statixis Raider, meaning that he will not be able to. Of course, they ignore 3 strikes. Disregard that. He will not have to worry about the 3 strikes. However, I believe that at the very least these 2 models will be within the 3-inch for the minimum charge range, and that means that this particular Bane Rider may have a hard time getting a good 3-inch charge lane in order to sufficiently take out these models. This model will be surprisingly hard to target in retaliation because of this particular funnel right here blocking that charge lane, and this particular funnel right here blocking this particular charge lane. So that'll be a tricky maneuver situation. So we have the parasite going down onto the battle engine, being arced through the arc node over the building onto the battle engine. It's obviously being a huge base and not having line of sight blocked to it by any kind of obstructive terrain such as the kind we see here. And this has been shown to be one of the strengths of this Denegralist, is being able to take advantage of the compulsory line of sight blocking terrain in the middle of the table. Having the arc nodes, having the stalkers that can bypass this, and having the spell list to be able to do significant work at range over that potential gap is, I think, a significant bonus. And so we are seeing a patience play by Jonas right now, and he is going to choose to hold his original standoff line as the barbarians did against the Romans, and he's going to ride it out for another turn. And he's confident in his 2 Crow's Cutthroats in the top zone and the 2 Blood Witches in the bottom zone and the Arc Node in the middle zone to contest enough for Rafal to have to expose his forces to this massive, and I mean massive, I mean look at it, it's just the entire table is just waiting to charge you. And you know that they get to right here. Right? Like right here. Like that line, you see where that battle engine is? If that thing moves even an inch and happens to be corporeal, or if any other model in Rafal's army moves past that line, they are about to get shit whipped by a whole bunch of Satixis raiders. So that's a very hard dilemma. The question is, when do you go in and how deep do you go? So Rafal right now just considering the threat to his right flank, the ambushing Blood Witches being a royal pain in the ass and forcing him to take time up on his clock to engineer ways of clearing them. Because of the fact that he has one engaged and at least one within close range, minimum range, Bane Rider, he's effectively looking at 3 potentially ideal Bane Rider charges that he could use to combine with impact attacks and charge attacks to clear a large number of models. But because of the geometry that Jonas has chosen for his model placement, it doesn't look like there are too many opportunities for Rafal to clear a large number of Blood Witches right now. I'm not expecting more than 5 Blood Witches to die during Rafal's turn, and I think if that were to happen, then it might potentially be an overcommitment on Rafal's part in response to the Blood Witches, thus allowing Jonas to take advantage and make a push for this area of the board. So Rafal now proxying what he's going to be doing with his right hand battle engine, looking to set up a full bunker here with a Bane Rider coupled with a battle engine, which would make, for instance, 2 particularly great feat targets to set up a position whereby pretty much everything within this part of the board would be safe from retaliation. If he's able to clear the surrounding area and able to position his obstructive pieces in such a way to really mitigate some of these charge lanes, namely the battle engines. Potentially this one may have to be placed here to try and scare this zone, or if he wants to play it safe, he can play it there to completely seal off this entire section of the board to his opponent. And if Rafal were to do that, he might score the middle zone, contest both bottom and top without any chance of having that contest being broken by Jonas's return. So we're gonna have to see if we see a feat turn here, yes or no, or if we're going to see the cat and mouse threat game continue. Potentially there is an opportunity to clear this top zone from enemies by using a impacting Bane Rider if the geometry aligns, and attempting to use maybe a Wraith engine to remove the objective and score this zone, whilst playing quite defensively along this line here, contesting this bottom zone with a Bane Rider, and scoring this central zone with probably Skarre1 being tucked right here behind the obstructing battle engines, which would give Rafal 2 points to score, 3 points actually, potentially, with the killing the objective, scoring the top zone and scoring the middle zone, if he can clear the arc node. And I think that is the crucial question here, is can he clear the arc node and score the middle zone. So it looks like the decision of how to play this turn will hinge on how Rafal plays this particular Bane Rider. I think this Bane Rider has a huge choice to make between going this way and going this way. And that, I think, will largely determine the strategy that Rafal has to adopt in his model placement for the rest of his army. So what we're seeing right now is he's just measuring it out. I think he realizes that the chances of him being able to scratch the arc node are slim. So I think he's choosing to play a safer strategy than trying to go for the 3-point score this turn.
Jackpot!
Mid facing as well.
Who the hell is that?
Stalker proxy.
Oh.
The 3 models. According to Raphael, it's jackpot. That's what that is.
Okay. So, obviously, having not forgotten about Skar's battle group, we have just a quick proxy going down in the bottom side of the map for a potential for maybe this Stalker to help deal with the Blood Witches. So that could be a much needed reinforcements to the right flank that Rafal needs to carry on maintaining his line of combat that he has drawn with the Bane Riders versus the Zetixus Raiders, being not there, but being a no man's land between this area right here, whereby any creature that steps foot into this area of the board is immediately removed from the table by the opposing side charging in. If he can clear some of these Blood Witches out from his right flank without having to use his Bane Riders, he can maintain his board position much easier. And if he can maintain his Bane Riders on the right flank right now, so he's just we're just looking at a Scar activation right now. She's just checking her placement, and we're gonna take a look. And we do have a feat.
I cast my feats, maybe you say that.
There we go. So we have a Dark Guidance and a feat going down from Scar right here, right now. Boom shakalaka raka right there. So this is going to be the go turn that we had pictured So we're going to be seeing the feat targets going down right now. Obviously the 2 battle engines being feated, and we have the front 3, front 4
Keep cutting.
Bane Riders being feated, I believe. Let's take the top-down view. So we have the front 4 Bane Riders, we have the 2 battle engines, we have also 1 more Bane Rider here. Now that is, I think, a very good choice. Obviously also Skarre herself being featured on. But I think that's a very good choice by Rafal to feat on this particular model right here, because this particular model can really carry a lot of weight in terms of protecting this space and threatening this fan in terms of free strikes. I think that is what you would call an anchor model. It's at a cross section of 2 different control zones. This is a model that, if you keep this model alive, the turn afterwards you can decide whether you send it up to help deal either with the objective to help clear this zone or to reinforce this particular zone. So that is a really good feat target. So we're gonna see now how Skarre1, having feated first in order to maintain the board position, is going to go up against Denny1, who is going to now get the chance to counter feat in order to try and gain a significant attrition advantage. So we have a very bold scenario play coming up against potentially a very heavy attrition play. And then we're going to have to see how that pans out in the long run. What's 82 asks whether or not these 2 gentlemen went via gentleman's honor to not play the Ghost Fleet mirror, and they in fact did not, partially because Jonas actually does not have a Ghost Fleet list in his 3-list pairing. He has instead chosen to play his Denny1 out of theme, and Rafal has played his Dark Host list, Skarre1, in this particular case, probably because of the very strong scenario presence of the Wraith engines, and the fact that he knows that Jonas was likely to drop the Denny1, and that the Denny1, for all of its damage capability, still has a hard time dealing with incorporeal models. The Blood Witches are a significant threat.
I'm not sure. It used to go.
However, because of the way that Jonas has chosen to play his Blood Witches as a flanking unit in order to try and gain table position, and not as a damage unit in order to respond to the threat of the centrally placed battle engines, had he chosen to give up his ambush and deploy his Blood Witches centrally as a response team to any particular battle engine incursion, then he might have been able to force these 2 huge bases to play more conservatively. As it stands now, with the incorporeal, with the Skarre1 feat, Rafal is going to feel fairly comfortable in taking a very aggressive board position in order to try and bring about a very heavy scenario pressure. He wants to start scoring. He wants to start the clock on Jonas's play. He wants Jonas to start having to commit more than 1 or 2 infantry models at a time. He wants Jonas to have to commit 10 infantry models. And he wants those models that Jonas commits to not even kill their target. For instance, a battle engine or a couple of Bane Riders. And then he wants to be able to capitalize on that with the high accuracy that he has on his Bane Rider charge attacks from the boosted attack rolls, and also from the ability to, like we mentioned earlier, to potentially take over one of Jonas's stalkers. The fact that the entire board is littered with models that the battle engines can proc from, there is a significant chance that one of Jonas's arc nodes or one of his stalkers may get mind controlled to their death. So right now we're just seeing the positioning on the Bane Riders, the front row of which have been feated on. Now that the movement has been completed, all of the feat tokens are all over the place. But the message is clear, and the message is this section of the board is a no-go area, and everything that is over here that you want to kill, you will not kill. At least not without significant investment. The question is now is whether or not Jonas is going to try and take that investment. The real problem here is this Bane Rider right here. I mean, this Bane Rider right here is going to be a huge problem to remove. I would say almost impossible. The arc node here has been sufficiently threatened to prevent any kind of spell arcing over here. Obviously, Rafal cannot stop Jonas from arcing a parasite into the Bane Riders and having those Bane Riders subsequently killed by 2-man pods of Satixus Raiders. He will lose these front 2. Potentially he may lose this one over here with a dice spike. But I am fairly certain that these 2 particular Bane Riders will be safe. Just positioning Tartarus over here as a potential counter to any clusters of infantry. Tartarus, as he did in the old days, giving a big middle finger to any kinds of warjack cluster-sized infantry swarms, like the traditional 4, 5, and 6-man infantry formations that you see engaging heavy warjacks. After which they kill your warjack and leave a perfectly sized hole for your Tartarus to walk or charge into and cleave his way through that entire section of the board.
Can I actually say something?
So the question now is whether to feat or not. So we are looking at popping a Denegra feat into a Scar feat, and keeping in mind that 2 of the Scar feat targets are incorporeal. And also, I believe we have a destroyed objective over here. So we have one corporeal wraith engine. Both of them are corporeal.
One kill objective, one run. No, the other one ran, sorry.
So we have one corporeal wraith engine. So indeed, this left flanked wraith engine has indeed given up his incorporeal in order to kill this objective. Time will tell if this was a worthwhile trade. The question becomes now whether the Satixes that oppose it are able to clear this particular Wraith engine, and also whether or not they can clear this one and still take into account these two potentially retaliating Bane Riders.
You have to go to bed soon, right? I think your mom's going to call soon.
The players are also discussing the real-life consequences of having maternal figures, who obviously at this time of night would call them to tell them to go to bed. But being the hardened professionals they are in tabletop gaming, they are willing to push both their minds and bodies to the limit. So I believe Jonas is now just checking for unpleasant surprises whilst he plans out what is looking to be like the most probable feat turn of all time. Probably because if he doesn't feat on this turn, he's probably not going to get another chance. So, getting to take his tape measure out for a good old Denegro-sized swing of the table. We're looking at clipping essentially all of these models with not 100% certainty about this particular Bane Rider and this particular Bane Rider. The question is whether the Denegro feat will be able to keep her safe from potentially this and this and this. And how much focus he's going to camp this turn. So we're just going to take a top-down look to get a good view of the central zone. And the model placement we're having here. So we have the Stalker advancing, basing this objective, this obstruction right here. And then we're looking at a double contest from this model right here. That being the right-hand side arc node that Jonas is committing now to contest the top and middle zone, and probably also serve as a potential arc node into the deeper recesses of Rafal's army. These deeper support structures, however, being fairly resistant to being arced upon, being stealth and stealth.
Okay.
And Derek being safe behind these two nice little clouds right here. So the defensive setup that Rafal has going on right now seems to be fairly resistant to most of the tricks that Jonas is going to be able to pull with the Negro one. We have a Warcaster movement right now. Just making sure that that is the final position. That is the final position indeed. And we have a feat dropping from the Negro one right there. And we are going to be dropping onto the top a mist parasite. Ooh. So having to cast twice there to get the parasite on the top battle engine, leaving Tenegra on 0 focus. There are many a times when a missed parasite has forced a Tenegra player into the uncomfortable positioning of having to cast it again and leaving themselves at 0 camp. So the question is whether or not Rafał might be able to capitalize on this missed opportunity and missed defensive capability on Jonas himself. And Jonas's ability to roll dice well failing him at this critical moment of the game.
Black penny.
So we have some black penny shots going down from the gunslingers who have been seen scarcely. I think they're a fantastic unit. I think they should be used more, and I am surprised that the advancing gunslinger cannibal cloud war was not a thing. So we're just looking at doing some plink damage onto the battle engine, and I believe we have done 1 point of total damage. And we're just going to get the top-down view here to just look at some charge lanes going on from the Satixus Raiders. And we're going to take a look at how many whips it takes to get to the bottom of a battle engine. My prediction, given the current situation with the feet and parasite, is 5. Uh, 5 being the exact number that are in combat right now. Making sure to stay in cohesion. Just making sure that the command ranges are all in order to make sure that everyone gets their attacks. And also moving the left flank or centermost flank of this same unit, and it looks like he's going to get 3 raiders onto the bottom battle engine, but that is, I thought that one was incorporeal. So the Satix is doing their best here not to roll double ones, and to try and get at least 3 spikes on the damage rolls for the charges.
No, it's dice of 9.
Yeah, feet and feet.
Minus, what is about 7 or 8?
Oh, this is minus 10, the other one's minus 9.
So we're looking at dice minus 9 and dice minus 10 for these damage rolls here, which just goes to show that the durability of these battle engines is fairly decent, especially since they got the hit point buff, and the Scar feat definitely kicking in here, but being largely countered by the Parasite and Tenegra feat, which is seemingly balancing the dice maths to a point where we are looking at maybe a 1 in 3 chance of these 5 Satixus Raiders being able to kill this battle engine. And there is one of the spikes that we're looking for. The question is, can he get another? The non-boosted damage rolls, that is unfortunate. The non-boosted damage rolls being largely insignificant in this whole damage pile-up. It's the charge attacks that really count here. The volume of attacks. Oh, that's another bad charge roll.
9 left on this guy.
So the battle engine has been left on 9 boxes by these 5 Satixis raiders. The respective feats and spells countering each other out, and we have another 3 Satixis raiders going in on this bottom battle engine right here, which apparently has gone corporeal and is a viable attack target for these Satixis raiders. And the damage rolls are picking up a little bit in Jonas's favor.
We'll do the all unit then.
And now that concludes the first unit of Satixis raiders, having done a fair bit of damage to the top battle engine, leaving it on 9 boxes. And having done a little bit of chip damage to the bottom battle engine. Let's take a look back at the regular stream view. Hold on, we just have a question from the audience about who is commentating. Yeah, my name is George Buscher, spelled without the E. I am a German, Dutch, English, long-time tabletop player who's been playing War Machine for about 4 years now, mainly as part of the Dutch team. And there we go, there goes the battle engine. Okay. So Jonas's dice picking up there and removing the second battle engine, and at the same time creating the single all-time greatest pocket of models for a flashing blade attack to just wipe all of them out. Unfortunately, the range is no good, and it's unlikely that we are going to be seeing Tartarus get live the dream and get 20 odd kills in one swinging attack.
Alright, so we start shooting him in the back.
I also realized that I may have inadvertently, despite my best efforts, drawn a dick and balls with a teleprompter because of Rafal's cloud templates.
Oh, it's one more. It was more?
Yeah, okay.
Apologies for that.
And the last one. And then the reposition. Bye-bye.
We are seeing the crows having done their activations and repositioning, continuing the well-honored traditioning of just pinging away and rolling up the flanks with the reposition to continuously threaten the back shots and any remaining support pieces on the far side of the table.
Yes, that's it.
Closing the nets and also finishing up Jonas's turn, who now has on his clock.
Yeah, whatever.
You're okay with it?
It's up to you.
You can say no. If you say no, I say no.
It's the final. No?
No,
Yeah, it's fine. I get to do it or you say no?
yeah, no, I say no because of
Yeah, it's fine.
25 minutes. He finishes his turn with 25 minutes left on the clock, having forgotten an activation and being forced to confront those consequences. However, he does have a fairly significant position on the table, and under the benefit of the Denegro 1 feat, he might be looking at a moderate return of damage.
So if I remove this guy and I move here, I got -2 mat, right?
One to mat, one to string.
I don't think strength is a problem.
So Rafal is just looking here to see if he can actually get a vector on Denegra right here. Jonas may have potentially overexposed himself in this feat turn. However, Rafal is currently left with 22 minutes on his clock, and is now put into a position where he has to think through this potential assassination. So we might be looking at a scenario where we could be looking at a landing site for a battle engine to get melee range onto Denegra. And I think that's maybe what Rafal might be proxying right now. So I think, assuming in this circumstance that the arc node is removed, he is now checking the range to see whether the battle engine can indeed get melee range into Denegra, and it looks like he can. Which means that all that it's going to take is a removal of this particular arc node, and this battle engine right here may be able to take out a naked Denegra despite the feat, and seal the deal for Rafal, which would be, I think, a great way to tie up the game. This is the quintessential knife's edge that you balance with the Negro 1, is how much focus do you spend and how aggressively do you pop your feet. Jonas popped his feet aggressively. He went all in. He spent all of his focus. He spent the focus to get the double parasite on the top battle engine because he missed the first one and still failed to kill that battle engine, and it might be that exact battle engine that he failed to kill despite the parasite that ends up costing him the game. So right now Rafal is posed with the challenge of removing an arc node and maintaining the landing site for that battle engine, meaning that he can't just run in a model with a big fat charge and swing at that arc node with a weapon master and kill it. He has to vacate that space so that his battle engine can get in and do the job.
And I can striker.
Yes. The Tartarus.
So it looks like we're going to go for a sack strike via Tartarus here. Onto Denegra as well, in order to increase the odds of this assassination.
Okay, but there's nothing to charge, really.
Yeah. And then you can do the second strike. It's a special action.
But he's not inside the fleet.
So he's just, Rafał is just considering the mechanics of this particular assassination run. His caster is not in Denegra's feet, so is fairly unhindered in terms of being able to move and perform special attacks, including the one that she has that I've currently forgotten. And Sacrificial Strike, that's the one. And to see whether he can leverage this to take this assassination from 60% to 90%. And those are the options that he's weighing right now, and they are heavy. And the whole time, whilst these options are being weighed, the clock is ticking down. So Jonas, on the one hand, having exposed himself to a very significant potential assassination threat, but also forcing his opponent into a position where he is having to dedicate potentially all of his clock to making this work.
Yeah, all of my clock is going to
Measuring.
And Rafał actually agrees with yours truly that he is going to dedicate the entire remainder of his clock to making sure that all of the measurements for this assassination run are exactly spot on. So it looks like we have a firm commitment to this battle engine based assassination, which was enabled by the fact that Denegra was forced to recast the parasite in an attempt to kill the same battle engine. So this may be a case of a few unfortunate dice rolls paired with a potentially greedy strategic decision on the Denegra player's part. That may be getting punished here with a reasonably reliable but unmistakable counter-assassination. And that really is the heart of the game when it comes to Cryx and when it comes to Denegra 1, is the careful pacing of the tempo of the game, the baiting of your opponent, the exact timing and placement on feet turns, and then the counterplays that come off of those feet turns. In this particular game, we see a very scenario and a table presence aggressive feat defensively from Skarre1, countered by an attrition focused feat from Denny1, which didn't quite hit the mark and left Denegra 1 now exposed to a potential counter assassination. So what we are seeing here is Rafał having leveraged his significant advantage of having gone first to leverage a very large scenario pressure, so forcing his opponent into feating in such a way that he was able to survive the feat with enough forces to fight back during the feat. So now I think we have gone through all of the mental arithmetic involved in a 20-minute assassination turn. We have positioned Derek and Tartarus to not interfere with the preceding violence. And we are going to focus solely on the prejudice that Rafal can bring to bear against this poor Arknode, who really is only in this position as part of his job function. And it's not even a job he picked, to be fair. So I feel slightly bad for the chicken in this situation, but at the end of the day, you can't have burgers without some dead chickens. The counter envelop is taking place here by the Bane Riders in the top zone, trying to get some of those juicy backstrikes on the Satixis Raiders. And he's going to go ahead and just clear these fairly trivially, clearing 4 Satixis Raiders. Just in the worst case scenario that the assassination attempt fails, he still wants to be in a decent position with regards to scenario and future attrition. Now we are clearing the remaining Satixis Raiders. And proccing the Void Spirit. Which will now be used to attack the Arknode, which will hit in the back arc. And then the Arknode will be mind controlled to walk away, allowing the battle engine to take his position for the assassination. A quick kiss to the dice, and we're rolling damage. That is a terrible start to the assassination run. And we're hoping a second damage roll will seal the deal.
No.
Can he kill?
Well, you can do a knot.
11 dice, 11 boxes, leaving, I believe, 4.
It's 50-50, like you kill or you don't.
Let that math, people.
You can always make that joke.
The 50-50% assassination looks like it hasn't gone off. We have 5 boxes left on the Negro 1. And the question is, are there any more attacks that Rafal can bring to bear here? Or is he going to get caught with his pants down? The crowd seems to be favoring the latter option.
I think it will be a game. I just think if I can do anything else in reality, but I don't think so.
He's considering his position on the board with the fact that he has 9 minutes left on his clock. This is going to complicate things dramatically, especially considering how many enemy models he still has left to chew through. Meaning that if this were to go into the late game, he might potentially be in a situation where he has to clock himself. So a very, very tough position for Rafal right now. The clock ticking down. No chance of winning this particular game on scenario right now. He has a decent board position, but is running out of time and is looking to get completely surrounded and is almost entirely at the mercy of Jonas's dice rolls, and still has to deal with the fact that there is a giant clusterfuck of Satixus Raiders still waiting to just lay into Rafal's army. And all he has left to protect him is a building and 3 Bane Riders. Other than those particular entities, there is nothing to stop Jonas from just taking this entire section of the board, making it completely off limits to Rafal for the rest of the game. Leveraging the time pressure, removing the battle engine, which has only 9 boxes left, and then collapsing his top flank to try and get some charges going on, potentially against these Bane Riders in the north. And it looks like potentially Jonas may have, by the skin of his teeth, weathered the storm, unless we can get a heroic activation going on right here from some model that I don't even know. What is that? So a tiny, a dim ray of hope,
What have you been talking about?
which I would like to add is barely visible on the screen or identifiable by its shape, has now turned out to be a stalker. One of the 3 that Rafal has managed to sneak into his list and onto this table, who may potentially be able to perform some kind of miracle here. Rafal is looks at the table and analyzes it, and he understands that this is a no-go, and we have a concede, making
That was a mistake that could have lost the other game.
I know, but I had to gamble.
I had 2 times luck in this.
making Jonas Brand our winner for the Masters tournament of ClogCon 2017, largely in part to his, some would say, unconventional, out-of-theme Denegra 1 list, which we have seen on this stream right here today multiple times, absolutely laying waste to people. Never mind, not out of theme. It's in the Satixus theme. The Denegra 1 Satixus really just putting a hurt in it. So yeah, playing a Denegra 1 with a non-Ghost Fleet list is apparently a thing. And yeah, I have to say this was I think I think this was a game that was played incredibly well by both players in terms of leveraging the strengths of their individual armies against their opponents. I think Rafal used his Bane Riders incredibly well to dominate the table space. Same with the battle engines. He really utilized the fact that he had the first turn, the fact that he had a high mobility, and really forced Jonas into a very difficult position early on into the game, where the line of battle was drawn almost at Jonas's advanced deploy line. So the fact that Jonas was able to come back from that by playing it patiently and being able to maintain a 40-inch concave beyond maximum threat for 2 whole turns whilst committing a minimum of flanking and disposable infantry models was very well played, because it brought him just enough time to be able to get to the point where he could safely pop feet, collapse his flanks into the middle, and apply the Satixis to the dangerous effect that they do. But still, at the same time, making a potentially game-losing decision to recast the missed parasites on the battle engine. So I think a lot to see here in this game in terms of list design, list structure, list play, and table management, and 2 different approaches to approaching the SR 2017 in modern day Cryx, and 2 completely viable but unique approaches to the same problem. Seeing really the strength of the current Cryx meta in SR 2017. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is where we call it a night. We're already at 10 past 1 o'clock over here in Amsterdam, having concluded the first day of gaming of ClogCon 2017. I thank you all for watching. Also, thank you for the commentary and the words of encouragement and support. We will be back again tomorrow in the same place with hopefully the same quality of play and the same quality of content. This has been George Busher from ClogCon 2017, winding up.
Thank you very much.